and why it's even being claimed. Michael Scheuer is a former CIA counterterrorism analyst who headed the bin Laden unit, and Chad Sweet worked both in the CIA and Homeland Security. Welcome. Let me start with you, Michael, if I can. Should we have any faith in this claim that we're close to defeating al-Qaeda?
I think we should have zero faith in it, sir. It's one of those things that when I was in college, the Jesuits taught me to never lie about anything, but if you lied about something, don't lie about something people can check. And if you simply pay attention to the open source material and look at the expansion of al-Qaeda since 2001, they now have operational platforms in half a dozen places.
Let me interrupt you while you're saying that, and we're going to bring up a map, because I want you to explain this, but I want people to be able to look at it at the same time you're saying that. In 2001, tell me where they were, and then tell me where they are now.
In terms of large operational bases at 9/11, they had Afghanistan to plan, to recruit, to store material, to train, to strategize in safety. Today, they still have part of Afghanistan. They have a big swath of Pakistan. They're in Yemen. They're in Somalia. They're all the way across North Africa in a growing movement that's now reaching down into the western part of Africa. And so just objectively, you really don't need an opinion. You just need to look at the facts, sir. Al-Qaeda is much bigger and much more geographically dispersed than it was at 9/11.
Chad, would you agree with that? And what kind of operations are we talking about in places like Algeria and Egypt compared to what they had in Afghanistan when they had the harboring government of the Taliban?
I couldn't agree with Michael, and I'd actually go a step further to say not only is he right that they have now expanded geographically and have multiple launch points for operations, but if we step back and look at that map, you'll see it lays over very nicely with what we're witnessing with the Arab Spring. We're also witnessing a dysfunctional NATO operation both in Afghanistan as well as in Libya that leads to openings for al-Qaeda there. As Michael points out, they are in each and one of those countries where we're seeing instability at this moment that can be exploited. And let's just step back and think about what we learned from the bin Laden treasure trove, right? Which is essentially that al-Qaeda was much more centrally controlled than many in the intelligence community and even I thought and my colleagues at the Chertoff group. But when you look at that, what it shows is that the old guard, what we'll call central AQ, al-Qaeda, was basically trying to force the young guard to follow their past performance, which is to do these long, multi-year planning attacks for very iconic operations with catastrophic proportion. Now, the younger guard doesn't believe in that. They're much more in tune, al-Qaeda, Anwar al-Awlaki, to do lower level attacks. And I think what we'll see here is more of a leaderless jihad, which is now, ironically, more unleashed by the death of bin Laden. So it is an issue of geographic distribution, as well as the fact now that they're willing to conduct much more lower-level attacks on softer targets.
Michael, one of the things that I remember, even from the earliest days right after 9/11, was this sense that intelligence analysts were saying it is a mistake to think of al-Qaeda as an organization. It is both an organization and an idea and a free-flowing movement. And so even if you knock off the leaders of this group here, and here, there's still a lot of them out there.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And I think great credit should go to the Central Intelligence Agency and the Special Forces for amassing a very impressive count of al-Qaeda leaders. But that's all we really have is a body count. We don't have a measure of progress against them. And to go back just for a couple of years, the real turning point in this problem was the invasion of Iraq. It transformed the group and the man, bin Laden and al-Qaeda, into just exactly what you said, Tom, into a philosophy and a movement. And now we see that everywhere, including in North America, in Europe, in Canada, and Australia. It's a much bigger problem today and much more potentially lethal in many more places than it was at 9/11.
And that's because, as you were mentioning a moment ago, this notion, Chad, that you're not necessarily seeing the old guard saying we want a giant attack like we saw here in New York with the World Trade Center, but smaller level things that can be operated truly by one or two people and can still have a big impact.
Exactly. I mean, let's just think back to Shahzad in Times Square, or
sure,
Abdul Muttalib on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. I mean, obviously, those attacks were not on the scale of 9/11, but what we learned from the bin Laden treasure trove is that bin Laden was actually reprimanding his lieutenants for trying to do those types of low-level attacks, and frankly, Anwar al-Awlaki and the younger generation were saying, you know what, we've waited too long, we've got to start to show that we're relevant. So, you know, to build on what Michael said, you know, I have tremendous respect for Secretary of Defense Panetta, but these comments are frankly irresponsible.
Well, then that's what I want to ask,
and they lead to complacency.
Why are they saying it then, Michael? It seems to me that I'm not sure what the upside is of saying this, other than it makes the public feel a little better.
I think that's exactly it, sir. They've surrendered in Afghanistan. They've lost the war in Afghanistan. They're beginning to pull people out of there. After 10 years, we have not even been able to build a security situation where Karzai's main political lieutenants are protected.
Hold on. I want to interrupt you a second, because you know the White House and the Defense Department would say not that they've lost in Afghanistan, and many families who have been over there would say no, that's not the case. That they have stabilized things much more than they were before. They got bin Laden. They drove a lot of these people back either into the mountains or over to the Pakistani side, and they're still going to keep mopping them up. That doesn't sound. It may not sound like victory to many, but it certainly doesn't sound like defeat to others too.
Well, it's a complete loss, Tom.
We will
dress it up. Because we will dress it up for the American people, as Mr. Panetta did today. But for 1.4 billion Muslims, when the United States leaves Afghanistan without accomplishing any of the goals, except for killing bin Laden, that they set out to do, it will be seen in the Muslim world as the defeat of the second superpower by the Mujahideen. They beat the Soviets, and now they beat the Americans. It will be a galvanizing moment for this generation of young Muslims, just as it was for bin Laden's generation of young Muslims.
And Chad, do you agree with that, or do you think that still remains to be seen?
I respectfully, and I have tremendous respect for Michael, as do my colleagues at the Chertoff Group, but I would say it still remains to be seen. General Petraeus is now taking over as head of the CIA, and there are opportunities for success. But I think Michael's fundamental point is correct, which is, you know, when I was a football player in Texas, we were always taught by my coach, you know, you always play like you're from behind. You never get arrogant. And right now, it is absolutely arrogant to say the things that they're saying, and it breeds complacency. And so what we want to drive home is the point that, you know, forgive the fans out there for, you know, Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints, but this reminds me of the 2010 Super Bowl, where everybody had written them off going into the final part of the game. They kicked an onside kick and came back from 10 points from behind. That's the challenge we have, which is it would be a tragedy of ironic proportions that if in bin Laden's death, give him a victory that he couldn't achieve in life through our arrogance and complacency.
All right. Well, Michael Scheuer and Chad Sweet, I really appreciate you joining us here. Up next,
thank you, sir.
Between a rock and a hard place. That's where John Boehner finds himself as we